A very good evening and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Newsfirst Weekend, coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Lanka. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
President instructs officials to provide dry rations for drought-affected people. Plans afoot to submit a no-confidence motion against Ravi Karunanayake. The naked face of media suppression. 38.4 million rupees spent on a comical building for Vivekananda Vidyalaya, Anuradhapura.
And now for the stories in detail. President Maithripala Sirisena has instructed the relevant authorities to immediately dispatch dry rations for people affected by the prolonged drought. President Sirisena embarked on an impromptu visit to Kapithikullava today to witness firsthand the hardships being faced by drought-affected communities. The President also visited Kapithikullava, where villagers asked for a resolution to the dire shortage of drinking water. Villagers informed the President of the economic difficulties they are facing as they have been unable to grow any crops for 3 seasons. Addressing public officials at the location, the President instructed that swift measures be taken to address these grievances. The Voice Against Corruption movement has called for further investigations into the relationship between Minister Ravi Karunanayake and Brian J. Sinaya, who recently testified before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on bond issuances.
Brian Sinaya, the Chief Financial Officer of Global Transportation Logistics, a company in which Ravi Karunanayake's wife and daughter are directors, testified before the Commission on Friday. He said that the initial payment of 16.5 million rupees to purchase a luxury residence in Colombo for the minister's family was paid with money which had been placed in the company safe by the chairman, Lakshmi Kandan. He added that Kandan had placed an additional 70 million rupees in cash in the safe in February 2015 and another 75 million rupees this year, noting that money from the safe had been used for repayments of the bank loan obtained to purchase the residence. According to the annual report of the Bank of Ceylon, the CFO of Global Transportation Logistics, Brian Sinaya, had also served as a director of Bank of Ceylon from the 9th of February 2015 to the 15th of November 2015. The bond issuance being investigated by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry occurred on the 27th of February 2015. Ravi Karunanayake was the Minister of Finance at the time. The accountant has mentioned money laundering in relation to the bond transaction. Money has been placed in the safe by the chairman in currency notes, and it is clear that money laundering has occurred. The accountant has also been a director at Bank of Ceylon, which decides on loan facilities at the time of the bond scam. This must be investigated.
The Ceylon today reported that the joint opposition is preparing to bring in a no-confidence motion against Minister of Foreign Affairs Ravi Karunanayake. Now, according to the report, the motion is being supported by a number of MPs in the UNP and the SLFP. The report adds that the 3 senior cabinet ministers, each from the UNP and the SLFP, in individual interviews had confirmed that there was a large number of ministers, deputy ministers and MPs who would be voting for the no-confidence motion. The Ceylon today also notes that the 3 UNP ministers said that they wanted to meet Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to tell him to persuade Karunanayake to resign. The allegations against former Finance Minister and incumbent Minister of Foreign Affairs Ravi Karunanayake continue to dominate discourse in the political sphere. Now, among those who chimed in on the scandal was Chairman of the Committee on Public Enterprises, JVP MP Sunil Handurnetti.
This lot are trying to accomplish in 5 years the same extent of theft, corruption and wastage the previous lot undertook in 15 years. This is what has been proven by Ravi Karunanayake. Previously, on the matter of the central bank bond scam, we only saw what was put down on paper by the Auditor General. Now the manner in which they swindled money with Arjun Mahendran and Arjun Aloysius and bought houses is being proven. Can Ravi Karunanayake continue to remain in Parliament? Can he continue as a cabinet minister? Of course they can, because they have cut off the vein of shame.
UPFA MP Ramesh Patrana, representing the joint opposition, had this to say.
A lady who testified on the bond scam had said that Ravi Karunanayake paid 160 million rupees for a house. Ravi Karunanayake did not receive 160 million rupees for the bond scam. He received 160 million rupees for granting a tax holiday to the distillery being built in the east by Perpetual Treasuries. The big brains behind the bond scam is the Prime Minister of this country. It is a public secret that the bond scam was carried out by the Prime Minister and Minister Malik Samaravikrama. If Ravi Karunanayake, who lent support on the side, received 160 million, imagine how many millions were paid to the Prime Minister. We will submit a no-confidence motion, but if they have any shame at all, the Prime Minister and the entire government should resign and go home.
Speaking in Monragala, JVP leader and chief opposition whip Anrukumara Dissanayake had this to say.
In January, they formed a government to punish thieves, and on the 27th of February, they committed theft themselves. The central bank bond scam. The perpetual company's profits from March 30th, 2015 to March 30th, 2016 amounted to 5.2 billion rupees. That amounts to roughly 10.5 million rupees a day. How much does the government give you in housing assistance? A maximum of 100,000? Ravi Karunanayake's 6-month lease was 1.1 million a month. Who paid it? It has been proven that it was paid by Arjun Mahendran's son-in-law Arjun Aloysius. Why should Arjun Aloysius pay Ravi Karunanayake's lease? The Ravi Karunanayakes and the Ranil Wickramasinghes are paving the path for Arjun Aloysius to swindle public money.
The Ceylon Today reports that President Maithripala Sirisena submitted a cabinet paper last Tuesday seeking approval to appoint a new economic council under his purview to take decisions on all economic and development projects of the government. Now, quoting a senior cabinet minister, the newspaper reported that the decision on the cabinet paper had been postponed because the Prime Minister had sought time to further study it.
The President had in his proposals in the Cabinet paper emphasized that the new Economic Council must comprise the President, Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the secretaries to those ministries and selected economic experts only. Citing a senior Cabinet minister as the source, the Ceylon Today reported that the President had informed the Cabinet that he must be consulted before a final decision is taken on any economic issue and development projects before implementation. A Cabinet Committee on Economic Management, also known as CCEM, has been functioning under the Prime Minister ever since the government took office. Claiming that there has been criticism from a broad cross-section of society that the CCEM has been usurping powers vested only in the Cabinet of Ministers, the Ceylon Today reports that Sri Lanka Freedom Party ministers allege that even the President is unaware of certain decisions taken by the committee. An Economic Management Committee has been functioning under the Prime Minister to steer economic affairs and strengthen the economy. However, I believe that people have not felt the repercussions of any actions taken by the committee recently. The President has proposed the appointment of a National Economics Council to further strengthen this process and to make it more transparent and efficient. Representatives will be led by the President, and the Prime Minister too will be a representative of this council. It will also include the Finance Ministry Secretary, the Prime Minister's Secretary, the Governor of the Central Bank and other key officials involved in running the economy.
An Economic Management Committee was appointed under the leadership of the Prime Minister, and this committee was managing the economy. After 2.5 years of this management, the government sold off one of our valuable assets to China. They say it is a lease, but as it is for 99 years, we call this being sold off. The President wants to create a National Economic Council, and the Prime Minister has asked for some time for this as well. We hope that at least now, the country's economy will be handled well. We need to appoint a set of experts as proposed by the President's plan for a National Economic Council in order to change this situation. We hope that this council will not act like the Prime Minister's committee, which sold off national assets. We hope that this council will pay attention to the needs of the people and not create such a situation.
News First has consistently uncovered failed institutions and positions that are being maintained at the expense of the public. Now, this is a review of these exposes.
Mohunthan Kanage, the CEO of the Information and Communication Technology Agency. The Google Loon project, spearheaded by Carnegie, promising cheap internet access for the entire country, is still a pipe dream. The effort to secure broadcast bandwidth under the guise of the Google Loon project after founding a company named Rama with his associates was foiled as the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission refused approval. Incidentally, the bandwidth which had been sought by the company for testing is the same bandwidth used by mobile phone service providers. Mohandan Kanage maintained continuously that no money had been spent on the Loon project. However, a total of 9,872,538 rupees and 20 cents was spent for the launch ceremony to secure the hall at Temple Trees, produce video content and short films, and to hire a private company to organize the event. In addition to the failed Google Loon project, Mohandan Kanage also spearheaded the failed National Payment Platform project. The National Payment Platform was intended to digitize payments at public institutions, licensed banks, and finance companies. The power to regulate any such payment platform is vested by law in the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The endeavour to implement the platform through a company named TotalPay was foiled by the intervention of the Minister and State Minister of Finance. However, it appears that no investigation has been undertaken as yet into the effort to undermine the regulatory power of the central bank and to obtain and insecurely store people's private banking information via a private company. Anti-corruption organizations have consistently raised doubts about Kanage's role in the e-identification card project to be carried out by ICTA. Measures were taken to collect extremely personal biometric data from the people through another private company, while an effort was also made to amend the ICTA Act to enable this. When it was initially proposed to appoint Mohandan Kanage, the individual behind all these failed projects, to the ICTA, the President had clearly advised that he be appointed only as a director. However, he was appointed CEO and his contract was recently extended. While Newsfirst has made several requests to obtain information on the wages and benefits afforded to Kanage by the government in the public interest, all of our requests continue to be denied. The mysterious Agency for Development and Mangala Yapa, who has been named as its Director General, is another instance of the untransparent spending of public money. While the controversial act, which would have formed a super minister within the cabinet, has not been adopted as yet, the Agency for Development, which was to be established through it, has been established and a Director General is being maintained at public expense. Recent exposés by Newsfirst have revealed that the individual holding this position is actively involved in the decision-making process. The Anti-Corruption Secretariat, which was established to bring the corrupt before the law, a key promise of the 100-day government, recently died a natural death. On the 20th of July, a public relations unit of the Prime Minister's office was established at the premises which previously housed the Anti-Corruption Secretariat. The head of this unit is J. Dadallage, the former secretary of the Ministry of Public Administration, who has been accused of corrupt practices by civil organizations, including appointing Anusha Palpiter, another individual with corruption allegations, as an additional secretary of the ministry. Meanwhile, the government continues to refuse to provide any information on the wages of these individuals who are being maintained at the taxpayers' expense. At a time when the citizens of this country are struggling to bear the cost of living while being plagued with natural disasters including drought, floods and epidemics, when will action be taken against individuals who are attempting to earn profits by undertaking failed projects with public funds? What obstacle lies in the way of redirecting these funds towards the well-being of the people?
A number of journalist groups expressed their displeasure over the actions of Minister Palini Digambaram, who obstructed the reporting duties of a Newsfirst reporter. The Government Information Department on the 28th of this month issued this letter requesting media coverage for the events of the National Breastfeeding Week. In line with this request, Newsfirst travelled to Hatton, where a walk and several seminars were held today. The chief guest at the event was Sudashini Fernando Pulle, the State Minister of City Planning and Water Supply. When Minister of Hill Country, New Villages, Infrastructure and Community Development Palini Digambaram began speaking at the event, his media secretary Anurat Nayaka took steps to remove the Newsfirst microphone from the podium.
In the podium.
A complaint was lodged this afternoon for obstructing the activities of the Newsfirst reporter who travelled to the location to cover a national event upon an invitation extended by the Government Information Department. Palani Digambaram first entered politics under the Upcountry People Front and went on to pledge support to Mahinda Rajapaksa after moving away from the party. In 2009, he was elected to the Central Provincial Council, this time on the UNP ticket. During the 2010 general election, Digambaram was elected to Parliament under the UNP banner, and by April the same year, he left the UNP due to issues with the government. By 2014, Digambaram once again pledged his support to Mahinda Rajapaksa, joined his government and went on to serve as a deputy minister under the UPFA. Later the same year, he parted ways with Mahinda Rajapaksa and once again joined Ranil Wickremesinghe. It should be noted that two of the Central Provincial Council members are his relatives. His father-in-law as well as his sister-in-law represent the Central Provincial Council.
As a journalist group, we express our displeasure and condemn what happened to the Sirasa Media Organisation during the event. We call on the President, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Media to immediately look into this and ensure that such actions do not take place once again. All media organisations have a right to report on government activities and functions. Ministers, parliamentarians or officials cannot obstruct this process. If this is being obstructed, then they are willfully preventing the people from getting to know what is happening. At a time when this government has enacted the Right to Information Act, such incidents taking place is truly saddening.
You're with News First, and up next is a look at Action TV.
On the 4th of July 2016, the Education Secretary for the North Central Province instructed all school principals under the provincial government that the consultancy services of provincial engineers should not be expected for any construction project that is not financed by the Provincial Council. Since the only source of funding for these schools outside provincial funds is the Line Ministry, it is evident that through this letter the Secretary intended to manacle the schools to prevent them from obtaining funds from the Line Ministry for infrastructure development. The incident which sparked this response from the Provincial Education Secretary was that after 48.9 million rupees was allocated by the Line Ministry in the latter part of 2015 to construct buildings in 5 schools in the province, a powerful individual in the province had endeavoured to secure the contracts for his associates through a spurious tender procedure. However, this attempt was foiled by the Line Ministry. By carrying out an open tender process to select contractors, the Line Ministry saved a sum of 12 million rupees for the state. After the initial sham of a tender process was exposed, the Provincial Council published a call for tenders in 2016 to construct buildings in 33 schools with a financial allocation of 2 billion rupees from the Line Ministry. The tender notice stated that priority would be given to contractors residing within the province. As a result of this condition, the contractor who submitted the lowest bid for the first 2 of the 33 schools was automatically disqualified. The sum of money lost to the government as a result was 10 million rupees. This series of events continues to underscore the greed that has pervaded the administration of the North Central Provincial Council. A construction project funded by the Provincial Council, which is currently underway, highlights the results that should be expected when decision-making is governed by greed. The Provincial Council has allocated a sum of 38.4 million rupees to construct this building for Vivekananda Mahavidyalaya in Anuradhapura. While much of the construction has been completed, the almost comical flaws could be highlighted even by a toddler using toy building blocks. While the concrete columns do not align with each other and some of the columns are already swaying, it is unclear whether this is the result of the expertise of the provincial engineers. If band-aid solutions are used to cover up these flaws and entrust the building to the school, then it would be ideal if the name of the great individual responsible for this project is carved into its walls, so they can be held accountable for the catastrophe that is sure to follow. Chief Secretary of the North Central Province, over to you.
A book titled Central Banking Challenges and Prospects, authored by former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, was launched last evening.
The event was graced by Minister of Special Assignments Dr. Saratha Murugama and the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy.
The country is not going to get out of the debt challenges it faces without a transformation in its export performance. I do not know of any country which has had export transformation without a competitive exchange rate. The exchange rate alone is not enough, but if you don't have a competitive exchange rate, you're often asking your exporters to run 110 meters in a 100-meter race. If the exchange rate is 10% overvalued, the real effective exchange rate is 10% overvalued, effectively asking our producers, our exporters, to run 110 meters in a 100-meter race. And by having an overvalued exchange rate, we are subsidizing foreign producers against our producers of exports and import subsidy. It simply does not make sense. Politically, people find it difficult to have a competitive exchange rate because there are many more consumers than there are producers. But people don't realize that unless you produce, you're not going to be able to satisfy consumers anyway in the long run, because you're not going to earn enough money as a small open economy to import the things that are essential for the people.
Many people think that central bank is the institution that actually manages the economy. The central bank cannot manage the economy because central bank has only one instrument, which is simply printing money. And that's the only instrument the central bank is having. The economy is managed by the government, and economy is managed by people like us who work in the economy. What I see today is that the senior officers of the central bank are being abused in public by very powerful politicians, which is not a good trend, because when it comes to the central bank of any country, the whole world actually looks up at the central bank and not at the government. But the recent trend has been that the senior officers have been abused in public, which is not a good thing, because even though that kind of a reference may be good for the local audience, it's not good for the international audience, which is a very bad thing when it comes to projecting central bank outside Sri Lanka.
The foundation stone for a model village in the Udagandara area was laid today under the Samata 7 Udagammana project. The event was held under the auspices of Minister Sajith Premadasa.
The village has been named Sadavira Senpati Janaka Pereragama. The village will consist of 40 houses and will be the 436th model village under the Samata 7 Udagammana project. They say this agreement was signed on a bad day. They say the Indo-Lanka agreement was signed on the 29th too. It was only today that I got to know that the former president has entered the profession of issuing auspicious times for the signing of agreements. Wasn't it you who had to leave the presidency 2 years prior to the due time because you believed certain people? If he proved that the day he selected decided his defeat, how can he be an expert on deciding a day to sign an agreement? Wasn't it he who handed over land with full ownership rights for the Shangri-La Hotel? Wasn't it you who handed over ownership of the land for the Colombo Port City project to China?
Colombo ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන Port City ව්‍යාපෘතියේ ඉඩන්ටික සින්නක් කරව චීනට දුන්න.
The daughter of former UNP General Secretary and Senior Minister B. Sirisena Kure, Harini Kure, has passed away. She was 46 years old at the time of her death. The remains will be kept at a private funeral parlour from tomorrow morning for last respects. And according to relatives, the final rites will be carried out at 4 p.m. on Wednesday at the Boralla Cemetery. And in sports news, weightlifter Indika Dissanayake set a new national record at the National Games today. Competing in the 77 kilogram weight class, Dissanayake lifted 136 kilograms. Well, that's a look at this Sunday's edition of News First Weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great week ahead of you. Good night.